Hey guys, today we are going to replace the spark plugs on my 2001 Dodge Dakota, and some of the stuff you're going to need are, of course, the spark plugs, some silicone paste or dielectric grease, some anti-seize, and an extension. I'm using a 3/8 inch ratchet here, 10 millimeter. I'm using a 6-point, and of course your 3/8 inch ratchet. Now this is the 4.7 liter with the coil pack over the plug, so it doesn't have wires per se, or a distributor cap or rotor, which I tend to like. It's a lot easier to repair and sometimes diagnose, but there are 8 of them. You've got, I think this is the even side. No, this is the odd side. I think this is 1, 3, 5, and 7, and then you've got 2, 4, 6, and 8 on this side over here. And the other thing you'll want to have, if you've got it, is some shop air, so you can blow out around the spark plugs and down into the spark plug wells, so that dust doesn't get down into your cylinders. But let's go ahead and get started. You've got just one 10 millimeter bolt holding each coil onto the spark plug. So I'm going to go ahead and blow out around this first one, and we'll take that coil out. Okay, so I got it blown out, and move the camera so you can see little nuts right over here. That's a 10 millimeter. Before we take this off, let's go ahead and disconnect our plug, and this portion right here just pushes down, then we'll be able to slide the plug out. Oh, nice. Looks like these have numbers on them. Cool. 1, 3, 5. Alright. Push down, and this just slides back after you release that clip, and just move that out of the way. And I was looking at the plug, looked like that was almost burned, but looks like somebody took a Sharpie and marked it. I don't know why. It sure does make you think it burned or shorted. So I'll go ahead and move that out of the way and undo that nut. I should have it broken free. Okay, you set that up out of the way, and now all you should have to do is, give it a little wiggle. You won't have a lot of room because of this stud, but then you should be able to pull it out. There you go. There is your coil pack. This doesn't look too bad. Looks a little dirty. I'll clean that off. One thing you want to pay close attention to is this O-ring right here. This guy. Make sure you don't have any cracks, and before we put this back in, we'll lubricate it with some silicone paste or dielectric grease. Same thing, we'll squirt some down in there. But let me get my flashlight so you can see what it looks like. Yeah, see, you got your little connector down in there, and this little O-ring right here. You want to make sure that you get that lubricated and inspect it for any cracks or tearing, or if it's completely missing, you want to replace that. Okay, this looks pretty good. I don't see any obvious cracks. That moisture you're seeing there is from my shop air. I had the oil line turned on for my pneumatic tools, so I had to turn that off, but I'll dry this off before I put it back in. So now let's take a look down in the spark plug well, and there's our spark plug. Before we go to pull that out, we're going to also want to blow air down in there and make sure that we get as much debris out of there so it doesn't fall down in our cylinder. So let me blow that with some shop air, and that should be a 5/8 spark plug deep well socket, which I'll grab. Okay, now we're going to take our spark plug socket, put it down in there. There we go. Now we'll just break this free. Oh, that's nice. Comes out easy. I always get tense with aluminum heads. I'm always worried that they're going to lock up in there and strip out. I think I'm just being too ginger with this. Since this is my first time doing it on this truck, I'll make sure that I go easy the first time, and then once my confidence builds up, then I'll be able to go faster. But you always want to, well, what I've always done is always done one spark plug at a time. Okay, that seems to be completely loose. And there's our plug. So let's take this out and inspect it. Okay, that one actually doesn't look too bad. That one looks pretty good, actually. I've only had this truck for about a year, and I don't know what kind of maintenance the previous owner did on it, but I am happy to see that he used Champion plugs, and that's what's recommended for our vehicles. Unfortunately, I bought the Bosch Super Plus copper, and that's fine, because you definitely want to do the Champion copper plugs on our 4.7s. We really won't see any increase in performance or power if you go with the platinum, or what's the other one, idiom or radium or whatever it is. The only thing you'll see out of those plugs are just longer change intervals, but these Bosch Super were the only thing they had. At least they're copper, and I think I spent $23 or $24 for all 8 of them. And the Champions I think run about $1.50 or $2 a piece, maybe even less. But yeah, definitely go with these. Looks like a little bit of rust there, but all in all, the plug's not too bad. The electrode looks good, doesn't look worn, and these should be gapped at 0.44 inches, although I've had a couple of other Dodge owners tell me that 0.40 is pretty good. I think with this this plug change, I'm going to go ahead and keep it at 44, but let's see what this guy was sitting at. Yeah, he seems to be right at about 0.46, 0.47, and my camera doesn't focus, so it's probably impossible to read that, but the gap's a little larger, probably because the electrode's worn down a bit. And I honestly don't know how many miles are on these plugs, but at least with these new ones that I'm putting in, I'll be able to gauge how many miles I put on them and how the electrodes do. But definitely the next change I'll do is I'll go with Champion, since that's what's recommended. And certainly if you can't find Champion, just make sure they're copper. Yeah, I wouldn't waste your money on the platinum. Okay, well, with that said and done, let me grab a plug, check its gap, and grease it up, and we'll put it back in there. Alright, here's our plugs, and they come 4 to a box. There's one right there. And let's see. Alright, good. Good. Throw that away. And let's take a look at this guy. That certainly does not look like 0.44. Well, looks like there's 41. Two, three, 4. I always hate these dial type. I wish I had the feeler gauge style, but we'll call that good. You know, you definitely want to look at the new plug, make sure there's no cracks or breaks in the porcelain, that everything looks good, and that it wasn't, you know, just previously used by another owner and brought back to the store. But this one looks pretty good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put a little anti-seize on here, and then we'll reinstall the coil. Alright, and the anti-seize you can buy at your parts store and whatnot. It's pretty cheap. I mean, considering, you know, you get a bottle this size, and this is 9 ounces. I think I spent $9 on this, and this will last you for years, especially if you're a home DIY type mechanic like I am. If you're doing it professionally, I'm sure you'd go through these weekly, if not sooner, just depending on what kind of work you're doing. But what I'll do, so I'll get a little bit on my brush here. I'll get that crush washer down, and I'll just put just a little bit down on here. Make sure it's pretty even. You don't have to use a lot. Just want to make sure it's even. There we go. Just make sure you don't get any on your electrodes, your electrode or point there. But that looks pretty good. Got a pretty even coating. And we'll go ahead and slip this back down in and get our coil ready, our coil pack. Alright, and what I'll do is I'll take my spark plug socket, set this down in here, and I should have had a little bit of forethought. I'd have done this first before putting the anti-seize on, because then you get that all over your glove, and this stuff sticks and stays on everything. So once that's done, you got it on there, pretty happy with it. Double check your electrode, make sure you didn't get any gunk on there. It's pretty clean. And set this baby back down. And be real careful. You don't want to slam it in there, because you could mess up your gap. So just try to get it a straight shot all the way down. And always thread it in by hand, as far as you can go. Let me get my torque wrench. Okay, and I just double checked, triple checked actually. The spark plug should be set on our 4.7 liter engines. The torque is 20 foot-pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my torque wrench and calibrate that and snug it down. And while I was in there, I also checked the part number for the factory plug, and it is, I don't know how well you can see this, it is RC12 MCC4. So if you can find these champions with the part number RC12 MCC4, get those. That's what came from the factory, and that's what the service manual recommends. But the only thing I had were these Bosch, and I wanted to get different plugs. The excuse me, the warning from the service manual, if you don't use the correct plug, you could get pre-ignition, which is not good for your engine. So if I have any of that out of these plugs, then I'll just go ahead and order some of these online and just replace the Bosch ones. But you know, 25 bucks is cheap insurance for good maintenance on your vehicle. But let's go ahead and torque this down, the spark plug, to 20 foot-pounds. I'm going to do this by hand until it gets snug. At least until I feel that crush washer bottom out. And that's, I feel it right there, and that's when I'll put the torque wrench on, and we'll get the 20 foot-pounds that we need. go. I'm checking one more time. Okay. That is 20 foot-pounds. So we'll set my torque wrench aside. Go ahead and pull this out. Now for the coil, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and dry the pneumatic oil that my air nozzle blew all over this. Then I want to go ahead and clean this off down here. Just make sure no debris fell into there. It's relatively clean. Then I can take a little bit of silicone paste or dielectric grease and shoot it down in there. I may need to get, yeah, I'm probably going to have to get, this can is about empty. Okay, so we'll take a, yeah, that's a little too much. See what happens when we get too excited? That's okay though. I can use the excess to lubricate my O-ring here. Grab a little bit more. Okay. Should be good. So now we'll just go ahead and slide this back in. Make sure that your hole here lines up with your bolt over here as you're pushing it down. And you should hear or feel, there we go, should feel just a slight little, kind of like a, as that coil goes over the plug itself. So now we're going to take our 10 millimeter bolt, put it back over this nut, our nut, and put it back over the bolt. Thread it down by hand. Okay. And now this nut right here is 70 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds, inch-pounds. So just roughly snug, but crazy guy I am, I'm going to go ahead and get my inch-pound torque wrench and torque that down to 70 inches. Alright, here we go. 70 inch-pounds. Wow. That's all they want. Okay. 70 inch-pounds. Double check that just for giggles. Make sure it's not super loose. Okay. It's on there. Last step. I'm going to go ahead and put a just a dab of dielectric grease right there. Just for giggles. And it's kind of overkill because it's got a rubber gasket on the backside here that prevents water or moisture, but I guess if you've got it, it doesn't hurt to use it. So go ahead and plug it back in, check the connection, make sure it's not loose. 1 down, 7 to go. So I think the only trick to doing this change is going to be your cover here. You notice on cylinder 3 you've got this big chunk of plastic that holds your heater hoses. In my case I replaced it with rubber hosing, but you'll probably have a steel hose that comes out to about right here and then rubber. You'll want to move those steel hoses aside, take all this off, and remove this portion here, which should be secured by this nut, and one on the back side, and this should get out of the way, and you should be able to get to this coil's 10mm and take that out. Let's take a look at the other side. You have pretty good access to this guy over here, cylinder 8, 6, 4, and then 2 is right there. But once you take your resonator and this hose for your air box off, you should be able to get right at that. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and finish this up. You know, just take your time, make sure you torque them and check for any damages, and as I'm doing the other 7, I'll go ahead and check, and if I find any that are fouled or messed up, I'll jump back on this video and show you what I find. But I don't expect to find anything funky. And I expect it to be pretty easy sailing, and then I'll drive it for a while, and if I get any weird stuff out of these Bosch plugs, I'll post back also. But you know, thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, definitely give me a holler. Leave them down below or shoot me a private message, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching, guys.